The great hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such fear. Ancient beings who had lived for thousands of years sat in their floating chairs, their bodies glowing with worry. The Zephyrians, who looked like living stars, flickered with nervous energy. The crystalline collective, made of living crystal, clicked and chimed in distress. Even the Voidwalkers, who could travel through space without ships, seemed scared. Veltar the Eternal floated at the center of the hall. He was the oldest Zephyrian alive, over 10,000 years old. His light pulsed as he spoke to the council. "We have a problem," Veltar said. "The humans are doing impossible things again." The other council members made sounds of worry. They had all heard about the humans. These young creatures from a small blue planet had only been in space for a few hundred years. But in that short time, they had caused more changes than most species did in millennia. "Tell us what happened this time," said Crystal, the leader of the crystalline collective. Her crystal body rang like a bell when she spoke. Veltar's light grew brighter. "It started 3 weeks ago. A human ship called the New Horizon arrived at the Kreth Empire's border. The Kreth are warriors. They have been expanding their territory for 800 years. They destroy any ship that enters their space." The council listened. They all knew about the Kreth Empire. The Kreth were large, powerful beings with thick armor and terrible weapons. They had conquered dozens of worlds and showed no mercy to anyone who opposed them. "The human ship was small," Veltar continued. "Only 200 crew members. The Kreth sent 50 warships to destroy it. But instead of fighting or running away, the human commander did something strange." "What did he do?" asked Phantom, a Voidwalker whose body looked like moving smoke. "He asked to speak with the Kreth Emperor, just like that. No fear, no weapons ready. He simply requested a meeting." The council members looked at each other. This was unusual. Most species either attacked the Kreth or ran away from them. No one just asked for a meeting. The Kreth Emperor was curious, Veltar said. He had never seen such boldness from such a small ship, so he agreed to meet. The human commander came aboard the Emperor's flagship with only 2 other humans. Veltar paused, his light dimming slightly. The human commander's name was Jake Martinez. He walked into the Emperor's throne room like he owned the place. The Emperor expected him to beg for his life or offer tribute. Instead, Martinez looked around the room and said something that made no sense. "What did he say?" Crystal asked. "He said, 'Hold my beer.'" The council chamber fell silent. Several members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The phrase, "hold my beer," had become famous throughout the galaxy. It appeared in reports about humans doing impossible things. Every time someone heard those words, something incredible happened. What happened next? Phantom asked, though he seemed afraid to hear the answer. Martinez told the Emperor that the Kreth were doing everything wrong. He said they were wasting time conquering dead worlds when they could be creating new ones. He showed the Emperor pictures of human colony worlds, places where humans had turned dead rocks into beautiful gardens. Veltar's light pulsed faster. Then Martinez made an offer. He said the humans would help the Kreth build paradise worlds instead of destroying them. He said they would share their terraforming technology for free. The Emperor laughed. Veltar continued. He said humans were weak and foolish. He said the Kreth way was the only way. That's when Martinez smiled. The council members leaned forward. They knew that when humans smiled in difficult situations, something extraordinary was about to happen. Martinez pulled out a small device, Veltar said. It looked like a simple communication tool, but when he activated it, something amazing happened. The device projected a hologram of a dead world in the Kreth Empire. As we watched, the hologram showed the world changing. Oceans appeared, forests grew, cities rose from the ground. "Impossible," whispered Crystal. "Terraforming takes centuries, even with the best technology." "That's what the Emperor said," Veltar replied. Martinez just smiled wider. He told the Emperor to look out the window. The Emperor did, and he saw something that shouldn't have been possible. Veltar's light flickered with fear. The dead world in the hologram was real. It was the 4th planet in the Kreth system. And it was actually changing right before their eyes. In the space of one conversation, Martinez had somehow begun terraforming an entire world. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. The crystalline collective chimed in distress. The void walkers flickered in and out of reality. Even the ancient Zephyrians, who had seen the birth and death of stars, seemed amazed. "How?" asked Phantom. "How did he do it so fast?" "We don't know," Valtar admitted. "Our scientists are still trying to understand it. All we know is that Martinez had somehow planted terraforming devices on the planet before he even met the Emperor. He had planned the whole thing." "What did the Emperor do?" Crystal asked. "He surrendered," Valtar said. "Simply. The most powerful warrior in 3 star systems looked at Martinez and surrendered. Not because he was afraid, but because he was impressed. He said he had never met anyone who could think so far ahead." Valtar's light grew dimmer. "The Kreth. Empire is now the Kreth Republic. They have stopped all military expansion. Instead, they are working with humans to create new worlds for refugees. In 3 weeks, Martinez turned the galaxy's most dangerous empire into a force for good." The council sat in stunned silence. Finally, Phantom spoke. "This is the 7th report this month. Humans are changing everything. They don't conquer, they don't destroy, they just dex things." "That's what scares me," Valtar said. "We have maintained peace in this galaxy for thousands of years through careful planning and slow change. Humans change everything they touch, and they do it fast." "What do you suggest we do?" asked Crystal. Valtar's light pulsed thoughtfully. "We need to understand them better. We need to know what they're really capable of. And we need to be ready for whatever they do next. Because every time they say, 'Hold my beer,'" Phantom added, "the impossible becomes possible." The council members nodded in agreement. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia, but they had never faced anything like humanity. These young, creative, unpredictable beings were changing everything, and that terrified them more than any army ever could. Danny Rogers floated in his worksuit outside the massive space station orbiting the dying star. The star was huge, bigger than most suns, but it was sick. Its light flickered like a candle in the wind. Soon it would explode and destroy everything. In the system, the crystalline collective had been working on this problem for 300 years. They were brilliant engineers, made of living crystal that could think faster than most computers. But even they couldn't save the star. "The calculations are complete," said Zixara, the lead crystalline engineer. Her crystal body sparkled with rainbow colors as she spoke. "The star will collapse in 47 days. We must evacuate everyone." Danny looked at the data on his tablet. Numbers and charts filled the screen, showing the star's decline. The crystalline collective had tried everything. They had built massive cooling stations. They had injected fuel into the star's core. They had even tried to reduce the star's mass by creating artificial gravity wells. Nothing worked. "How many people live in this system?" Danny asked. 14 billion, Zixara replied, "across 8 worlds and 53 space stations. Most are crystalline collective members, but there are also colonies of other species." Danny whistled softly. 14 billion lives. That was more people than lived on Earth when humans first went to space. The crystalline collective had been planning this evacuation for decades. They had built transport ships and found new worlds for their people. But moving 14 billion beings would take time they didn't have. "Show me the star's internal structure," Danny said. Zixara's colors shifted to show confusion. "We have already analyzed every detail. The fusion reactions are failing. The magnetic field is collapsing. The core temperature is dropping. There is no solution." "Just show me," Danny said. A hologram appeared in the space between them. The star hung in the air like a giant ball of fire. Danny could see the layers inside it. The core where hydrogen became helium. The middle layers where energy moved outward, and the outer layer that gave off light. Danny studied the hologram for exactly 47 minutes. He looked at the numbers. The energy flows, the magnetic fields. The crystalline collective had done perfect work. Their analysis was complete and correct. The star was dying, and nothing could save it. Danny turned to Lisa Chun, his engineering partner. She was floating nearby, also studying the data. Lisa was one of the smartest people Danny had ever met. She could solve problems that stumped entire teams of engineers. "Lisa," Danny said, "hold my beer." Lisa's eyes went wide. Around them, the crystalline collective began to chime in alarm. The phrase, "hold my beer," had become famous throughout the galaxy. It meant a human was about to do something impossible. "Danny," Lisa said slowly, "please tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking." Danny grinned. "I'm thinking we can save this star, but we'll need to break a few laws of physics to do it." Zixara's crystal body flashed bright red. "That is impossible. We have calculated every option. The star cannot be saved." "You calculated every normal option," Danny said. "But humans don't do normal." Danny pulled up a new hologram. This one showed the entire star system with all its planets and moons. "Look at this system. You've got 3 gas giants, perfect for what we need. You've got a bunch of rocky planets with heavy metal cores. And you've got this beautiful, dying star in the middle. What are you proposing?" Zixara asked. "We're going to turn the gas giants into pressure valves," Danny said. "We'll use their gravity to pull mass away from the star when it gets too heavy. Then we'll use the star's own solar wind to create a feedback loop that will stabilize the fusion reactions." The crystalline collective made sounds of distress. Their crystal bodies chimed and sparkled with worry. "That is completely insane," said Morkith, the oldest crystalline engineer. He was over 2,000 years old and had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. "You cannot use planets as pressure valves. The gravitational forces would tear them apart. Not if we do it right," Danny said. "Lisa, show them the math." Lisa sighed and pulled up her own hologram. "We'll need to create artificial black holes at the gas giant's north and south poles. The black holes will be tiny, just big enough to create controlled gravitational fields. We'll use these fields to redirect the gas giant's gravity toward the star." "You want to create black holes?" Zixara asked in horror. "Black holes are the most dangerous things in the universe. They destroy everything they touch, only if you make them too big," Danny said. "We'll make them small and controlled. Think of them as gravity pumps." Morkith's crystal body turned pale. "Even if that were possible, how would you stabilize the star's fusion reactions?" "Solar wind recycling," Lisa said. "The star throws out charged particles all the time. We'll capture those particles with magnetic fields and send them back into the star's core. It'll be like giving the star a constant supply of fresh fuel. And the heavy metals from the rocky planets will help create the magnetic fields we need," Danny added. "We'll strip mine 3 planets and use their metal to build a network of magnetic field generators around the star." The crystalline collective stared at the humans in amazement. The plan was so crazy it sounded like science fiction. But as they looked at the calculations, they realized something incredible. It might actually work. "This plan violates 17 laws of physics," Morkith said weakly. "Only if you think about physics the old way," Danny replied. "We're not violating the laws, we're just using them creatively." "How long would this take?" Zixara asked. 6 months to build everything," Lisa said. "Another month to get it all working properly. The star will be stable for the next 1,000,000 years." "6 months?" Morkith exclaimed. "We have been working on this problem for 3 centuries, and you think you can solve it in 6 months?" "We don't think we can solve it," Danny said. "We know we can solve it. The question is, do you want to help us, or do you want to evacuate 14 billion people?" The crystalline collective huddled together, their crystal bodies chiming softly. As they discussed the plan, finally Zixara spoke. "This is the most dangerous, reckless, impossible plan we have ever heard," she said. "It could destroy the entire star system. Or it could save it," Danny said. "Yes," Zixara agreed. "It could save it." "Very well, we will help you. But if this plan fails, the responsibility is yours." "If this plan fails," Danny said, "we'll all be dead anyway, so let's make sure it doesn't fail." Within hours, the greatest engineering project in galactic history began. Crystalline collective engineers worked alongside human technicians to design the artificial black holes. Massive mining ships began stripping metal from 3 rocky planets. Construction crews started building the magnetic field generators that would surround the star. News of the project spread throughout the galaxy. Other species sent observers to watch the humans attempt the impossible. The Zephyrians came to study the energy flows. The Void Walkers came to see if humans could really control black holes. Everyone expected the project to fail. Everyone expected the star system to be destroyed. Instead, they watched in amazement as the impossible slowly became possible. The artificial black holes were created. Without destroying anything, the magnetic field generators were built and positioned around the star. The solar wind recycling system was installed and activated. On the final day, Danny and Lisa floated in space, watching as their creation came to life. The star's flickering light grew steady. The fusion reactions stabilized. The magnetic fields glowed with beautiful colors. "It's working," Lisa said softly. "Of course it's working," Danny replied. "We're humans. We don't know how to fail." Around them, the crystalline collective celebrated. Their crystal bodies rang like beautiful bells, creating music that filled the space around the star. 14 billion lives had been saved by 2 humans who refused to accept that something was impossible. Word of the success spread throughout the galaxy. The immortal races began to understand something that frightened them more than any army or weapon. When humans said, "Hold my beer," miracles happened, and there was no telling what they might do next. The Deep Haven space station floated in neutral space, far from any star system. It was huge, bigger than most cities, with spinning sections that created artificial gravity. The station was a meeting place for diplomats from across the galaxy. Today, it hosted the most important meeting in galactic history. Representatives from 12 immortal species sat around a circular table in the station's main conference room. The Zephyrians glowed with nervous energy. The crystalline collective chimed softly with worry. The Void Walkers flickered in and out of reality. Even the ancient ethereal monks, who rarely left their meditation chambers, had come to this meeting. They were all here to discuss the same thing, the human problem. "The situation is getting worse," said Veltar the Eternal, his light pulsing with concern. "Every week we get new reports of humans doing impossible things. They're changing everything they touch." Last month, a human trader named Pete Johnson ended a trade war that had lasted 400 years, added Crystal of the Crystalline Collective. "He did it by accident while trying to sell coffee beans." "How does one accidentally end a war?" asked Whisper, an ethereal monk whose body looked like floating mist. Johnson was trying to explain why his coffee was better than the local drinks. Crystal replied. He ended up inventing a new form of faster-than-light communication. The 2 sides realized they had been fighting over a misunderstanding for centuries. Around the table, the immortal beings made sounds of distress. They had all heard similar stories. Humans seemed to solve problems by accident, making solutions that had escaped the immortals for millennia. "There's more," said Phantom, a Void Walker whose smoky form shifted constantly. A human philosopher named Susan Wright stopped a religious war in the Outer Rim. She proved that all the fighting religions were actually talking about the same thing, just from different points of view. "How long did this religious war last?" asked Whisper. 800 years, Phantom replied. Wright ended it in 3 days. The immortals sat in stunned silence. 800 years of war, ended in 3 days by a human who wasn't even trying to stop it. "That's why we're here," Veltar said. "We need to decide what to do about humanity. They're disrupting systems that have maintained peace for thousands of years." "But they're not conquering anyone," pointed out Mortith, an elderly crystalline engineer. "They're not building armies or threatening other species. They're just fixing things." "That's what makes them dangerous," Veltar replied. "We maintain peace through careful planning and slow change. Humans change everything quickly. They don't follow the rules." "What rules?" asked a new voice. The immortals turned to see two humans entering the conference room. The man was tall and confident, wearing a simple blue uniform. The woman beside him was smaller, with short black hair and bright eyes. "I'm Rick Thompson, human ambassador," the man said. "This is Carol Martinez, my aide. We understand you wanted to discuss humanity's role in galactic affairs." The immortals looked at each other in confusion. This was supposed to be a secret meeting. How had the humans found out about it? "How did you know about this meeting?" Veltar asked. "Carol intercepted your communications," Rick replied casually. "She's very good at that sort of thing." Carol smiled. "You left your encryption keys in the same place 3 times in a row. That's not very secure." The immortals realized they had been outsmarted by beings who had only been in space for a few centuries. It was embarrassing. "Please sit down," said Whisper, gesturing to 2 empty chairs. "We would like to understand your perspective." Rick and Carol sat down. The immortals noticed that neither human seemed nervous or intimidated. They were surrounded by beings who had lived for thousands of years, who had seen the rise and fall of empires, who had power beyond imagination. But the humans just looked interested and alert. "We understand your concerns," Rick said. "You think humans are too unpredictable. You think we change things too fast." "That's correct," Veltar replied. "We have maintained galactic peace for millennia through careful diplomacy and gradual change. Your species solves problems instantly, without considering the long-term consequences. Can you give us an example?" Carol asked. "The Kreth Empire," Crystal said. "Your commander Martinez turned the galaxy's most dangerous military force into a peaceful republic in 3 weeks. That kind of rapid change is destabilizing, is it?" Rick asked. "The Kreth were conquering worlds and killing billions of people. Now they're creating new worlds and saving billions of lives. How is that destabilizing?" "Because change should be gradual," Veltar explained. "When you change things too quickly, you create unexpected problems. The Kreth transformation could have had negative consequences throughout 3 star systems." "But it didn't," Carol pointed out. "The Kreth are happier now. The worlds they were threatening are safe. Everyone benefits." "That's not the point," Phantom said. "The point is that you didn't know it would work. You took a huge risk." Rick looked at the immortals with understanding. "You're not really worried about us being dangerous, are you? You're worried about us being unpredictable." "Yes," Whisper admitted. "We know how to deal with threats. We've faced conquerors and destroyers before. But we don't know how to deal with people who fix problems in ways we never imagined. For example," Veltar said, "this space station has been having power problems for 6 months. Our best engineers have been working on it. We've made slow progress, but the problem persists." "What kind of power problems?" Carol asked. "The main reactor produces excess heat," Crystal explained. "We've been trying to build better cooling systems, but the heat output keeps increasing. Soon we'll have to shut down non-essential systems." Rick looked at Carol. "Hold my beer," he said. The immortals actually moved away from the table. Some of them prepared to teleport to safety. Others began activating emergency shields. The phrase, "hold my beer," had become the most feared words in the galaxy. "Relax," Carol said, laughing. "We're not going to blow up the station." Rick stood up and walked to the room's environmental controls. He studied the display for a moment, then made a few simple adjustments. "There," he said, "problem solved. What did you do?" Veltar asked suspiciously. "I rerouted the excess heat from the reactor through the station's ice processing system," Rick explained. "The heat melts the ice faster, which creates more water for the hydroponic gardens. The gardens absorb the heat and convert it to plant growth. You'll actually have better food production now." The immortals stared at him. The solution was so simple, so obvious. They had been trying to get rid of the heat when they should have been using it. "How did you see that so quickly?" Morketh asked. "Because we're not immortal," Carol replied. "We don't have thousands of years to think about problems. We have to solve them fast, so we look for simple solutions. That's what scares us, Whisper said quietly. In 10,000 years of existence, I have never felt as limited as I do watching humans work. You're not limited, Rick said. You're just experienced. Experience can be a gift, but it can also be a trap. You know so much about why things don't work that you forget to look for ways they might work. Is that why you say, hold my beer before doing impossible things? Phantom asked. It's just a saying, Carol explained. It means we're about to try something that might not work. It's a way of admitting that we don't know everything, but we're going to try anyway. And that's why you succeed, Valtar said, with understanding. You're not afraid to fail, so you're willing to try things we would never attempt. Exactly, Rick said. We fail a lot, but we also succeed a lot. And when we succeed, we usually succeed big. The Immortals sat in thoughtful silence. They were beginning to understand that humans weren't a threat to galactic stability. They were evolution in action, forcing the galaxy to grow and change in ways that millennia of immortal wisdom never could. What do you want from us? Whisper asked. Nothing, Rick replied. We just want to be part of the galactic community. We want to help solve problems and make life better for everyone. Even if it means breaking all the rules? Valtar asked. Especially if it means breaking all the rules, Carol said with a smile. Rules are just suggestions anyway. The Immortals looked at each other. They had called this meeting to discuss the human problem. Instead, they had discovered that humans weren't the problem. They were the solution. Outside the conference room, the space station hummed with renewed energy. The power problems were gone, the gardens were thriving, and the Immortals were learning that sometimes the best way to solve an old problem was to hand it to someone young enough to think it could be solved. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in thousands of years, that change felt like progress. The emergency beacon cut through space like a scream. Every ship, every station, every world in the galaxy received the same message. Ancient threat detected. All species report to emergency council session immediately. The Galactic Council. Chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the floating seats. The air hummed with translators working overtime as dozens of different languages mixed together. Fear filled the room like a thick fog at the center of the chamber. A massive holographic display showed the edge of the galaxy. Red dots moved slowly but steadily toward the galactic rim. The dots were ships, but not like any ships the younger species had ever seen. The Devourers have returned, announced Veltar the Eternal, his light flickering with ancient terror. Our long-range sensors detected their fleet 3 days ago. They are 2 years away from the outer colonies. A wave of shocked voices filled the chamber. The Devourers were legend to most species, a nightmare from the distant past. But to the immortal races, they were a memory of the darkest time in galactic history. For those who don't know, Veltar continued, the Devourers are an ancient mechanical race. They consume matter at the molecular level, breaking down everything they touch to fuel their expansion. 2,000 years ago, they swept through this galaxy like a plague. How were they stopped? Asked Captain Ben Foster, the human representative. He was a quiet man with gray hair and steady eyes. Behind him sat his crew, engineer Tony Garcia, communications specialist Janet Moore, and several other humans. They weren't stopped, replied Morketh of the Crystalline Collective, his crystal body ringing with old pain. They were barely driven away. It took the combined efforts of every major civilization and cost billions of lives. Even then, we only managed to push them beyond the galactic rim. What's their technology level? Asked Tony Garcia. Far beyond anything we have now, answered Phantom, a void walker whose smoky form flickered with worry. Their ships can consume entire moons in days. Their weapons can destroy stars. Their hive mind can coordinate attacks across thousands of light years. How many ships are coming? Janet Moore asked. Our sensors show at least 10,000 vessels. Veltar replied, probably more. Their technology makes it hard to get exact numbers. The chamber fell silent. 10,000 ships of that power level was a force that could destroy the galaxy. What are our options? asked Whisper, an ethereal monk whose misty form shimmered with concern. We prepare for another war, Valtar said. We unite all species, build the largest fleet in galactic history, and hope we can repeat what our ancestors did 2,000 years ago. How long do we have? Asked Crystal of the Crystalline Collective. Based on their current speed, about 50 years to prepare, Valtar replied. We'll need every day of that time to build enough ships and weapons to have a chance. 50 years, repeated Morkith. It took us 70 years to prepare for the last war. And we barely won. We have more advanced technology now, pointed out Phantom. Our weapons are stronger, our ships are faster. But the Devourers have had 2,000 years to improve as well, Valtar said grimly. They may be even more dangerous now. Captain. Foster had been listening quietly, but now he raised his hand. Can I see the sensor data on the Devourer fleet? Of course, Valtar replied. The holographic display changed, showing detailed scans of the approaching ships. The Devourer vessels were massive, dark shapes that seemed to absorb light. Their hulls were covered in strange patterns that hurt to look at directly, Foster studied the data for several minutes. His crew gathered around him, whispering in low voices. Finally, Foster stood up. Hold my beer, he said. The reaction was immediate. The Zephyrian's light flickered out entirely. The Crystalline Collective made sounds like breaking glass. The Void Walkers actually disappeared, teleporting to safety. Even the ancient ethereal monks pulled back their misty forms. No, said Valtar, his light returning in a panicked flash. No, no, no. Not for this? The Devourers are not a problem you can solve with human creativity. They are a force of nature, a cosmic disaster. They cannot be reasoned with, cannot be fixed, cannot be changed. Can't they? Foster asked calmly. Have you ever actually talked? To one? Talked to one? Morkith asked in horror. They're machines. They don't talk. They consume. Every machine has a purpose, Foster said. Even the Devourers were built by someone, for some reason. Maybe that reason isn't what we think it is. They were built to consume, Crystal said. That's all they do. That's all they've ever done. But why? Foster asked. Why would anyone build machines whose only purpose is to destroy? That doesn't make sense. Tony Garcia stood up beside his captain. Ben's right. I've been looking at the sensor data. These ships aren't just destroyers. Look at the patterns on their hulls. A new hologram appeared, showing a close-up of a Devourer ship. The strange patterns on its surface were complex, almost like circuit boards. Those aren't weapons, Tony said. Those are processors, information storage. These ships are thinking, learning, adapting. They're not just machines following programming. They're intelligent. Of course they're intelligent, Phantom said. That's what makes them so dangerous. They can learn and adapt faster than we can. But if they're intelligent, Janet Moore said, then they can be communicated with. They can be reasoned with. Maybe even changed. Impossible, Valtar said. The Devourers have been contacted before. They never respond to communication attempts. They just consume. Maybe they've been trying to communicate, Foster suggested. Maybe their consumption is actually a form of communication that we don't understand. The Immortals stared at the humans in disbelief. The idea was so crazy, so dangerous that it bordered on madness. You want to talk to them? Whisper asked. You want to try to reason with a force that has destroyed entire civilizations? I want to understand them, Foster replied. Look at their behavior patterns. They consume, yes, but they also preserve. Every world they've destroyed still exists in their databanks. Every species they've eliminated is recorded in their memory cores. They're not destroyers, Tony added. They're archivists. They preserve things by absorbing them, storing them, keeping them safe forever. That's an interesting theory, Valtar said slowly. But even if it's true, it doesn't change the fact that they're coming to archive our entire galaxy. Maybe they don't have to, Foster said. Maybe we can offer them something better. What could we possibly offer beings that powerful? Asked Morkith. A new purpose, Foster replied. What if the Devourers aren't broken? What if they're just lonely? Think about it. They've been wandering the universe for millions of years, preserving dead civilizations. When was the last time they met a living civilization that actually wanted to talk to them? You're suggesting we negotiate with them? Krikstal asked. I'm suggesting we try to understand them, Foster said. And if we can understand them, maybe we can find a way to coexist. And if you're wrong? Veltar asked. If they really are just destroyers, if your attempt to communicate with them fails? Foster shrugged. Then we'll be no worse off than we are now. You're planning to fight a war you're not sure you can win. I'm planning to avoid a war that doesn't need to happen. How? Asked Phantom. We intercept one of their scout ships, Foster said. We board it, access its systems, and establish communication with the hive mind. We find out what they really want, and we see if we can give it to them. Board a Devourer ship? Morkith asked in horror. That's suicide. Their ships are designed to consume anything that enters them. Maybe, Foster said, but we won't know until we try. The Immortals looked at each other. The human plan was insane, dangerous beyond belief. But as they thought about it, they realized something troubling. It was also the only plan that offered hope instead of just survival. If we agree to this, Veltar said slowly, and if you fail, the Devourers will know we're here. They'll accelerate their approach. We'll have less time to prepare for war. If we don't try this, Foster replied, we'll definitely have a war. And from what you've told me, it's a war we might not win. What do you need from us? Asked Whisper. Fast ships, Foster said, the best sensors you have, and volunteers who are willing to take the biggest risk in galactic history. I'll go, said Tony Garcia immediately. Me too, added Janet Moore. Around the chamber, other voices began to speak up. A young crystalline engineer named Hexara volunteered. A Voidwalker called Shadow offered to help. Even a few Zephyrians said they would join the mission. This is madness, Veltar said. But his light pulsed with something that might have been hope. Maybe, Foster agreed. But it's our kind of madness. The chamber erupted in discussion as species began to argue about the plan. Some wanted to start building warships immediately. Others thought Foster's idea was worth trying. A few suggested doing both at the same time. Finally, Veltar called. For order, we will vote, he announced. All in favor of attempting communication with the Devourers? Hands, tentacles, energy fields, and crystal formations rose throughout the chamber. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. The motion passes, Veltar said. Captain Foster, you have the full support of the Galactic Council. May, whatever. Gods you believe in watch over you. We don't need gods, Foster replied. We've got something better. Ugh. The void between galaxies was cold and empty, lit only by distant stars. Here, in the darkest part of space, Captain Ben Foster's ship waited in silence. The vessel was small compared to the massive Devourer scout ship approaching them, but it was fast and equipped with the best technology the galaxy could provide. Contact in 30 minutes, reported Janet Moore from her communications station. Her voice was steady, but Foster could see the tension in her shoulders. They were about to attempt something that no living being had ever tried. Tony, are you ready? Foster asked. Tony Garcia looked up from his engineering station. His hands moved quickly over the controls, making final adjustments to their equipment. The quantum interface is as ready as it's going to be. But Ben, I have to say this one more time. We're about to board a ship that's designed to break down matter at the molecular level. This could kill us in ways we can't even imagine. I know, Foster replied. But if we don't try this, billions of people are going to die anyway. Behind them, their volunteers checked their equipment one final time. Hexara, the young crystalline engineer, sparkled with nervous energy. Shadow, the Voidwalker, flickered in and out of reality as anxiety affected his control. Even the Zephyrian volunteer, a being called Brightstar, dimmed his natural light. To avoid detection, all teams report ready, Foster announced. Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to talk. If this works, we might prevent the biggest war in galactic history. If it doesn't work, If it doesn't work, we'll be too dead to worry about it. Tony finished. The Devourer scout ship was enormous, a dark mass that seemed to absorb light itself. Its hull was covered in the strange patterns they had seen in the sensor data, circuits and processors that pulsed with alien energy. As they watched, parts of the ship shifted and changed, adapting to unknown stimuli. "It's beautiful," whispered Janet, staring at the alien vessel. "Terrifying, but beautiful." "It's scanning us," reported Hexara, her crystal body ringing softly, as she monitored their sensors. "The scans are gentle, almost curious." "That's a good sign," Foster said. "If it wanted to destroy us, we'd already be dead." "Contact in 5 minutes," Janet announced. Foster took a deep breath. Everything they had planned, everything they had hoped for, came down to the next few hours. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council. Let them know we're about to make contact." "Channel open," Janet confirmed. "Council, this is Foster. We're about to board the Devourer ship. If you don't hear from us in 6 hours, assume the plan failed and begin preparing for war." "Understood." "Captain," came Veltaris' voice across the vast distance. "Good luck." "We don't need luck," Foster replied. "We're humans." The two ships came together slowly, carefully. The Devourer vessel extended what looked like a docking tube, connecting to Foster's ship with surprising gentleness. Atmosphere readings showed that the alien ship had actually created a breathable environment in the docking area. "It's making it easier for us to board," Tony said in amazement. "It wants us to come aboard." "Or it's preparing to digest us more efficiently," Shadow pointed out. "Only one way to find out," Foster said. He stood up and walked toward the airlock. "Tony, bring the interface device." "Janet, monitor all communications." "Everyone else, stay alert and remember what we're here to do." The airlock opened and they stepped into the Devourer ship. The interior was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls pulsed with organic-looking circuits. Streams of data flowed through transparent tubes like glowing blood. The air hummed, with processing power beyond imagination. "It's not a ship," breathed Hexara. "It's a brain." The entire vessel is one massive thinking machine. They moved deeper into the ship, following corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they walked. The ship was guiding them somewhere, leading them toward its heart. Finally, they reached a vast chamber filled with swirling energy. At the center stood a pillar of pure information, data streams flowing in patterns too complex for any organic mind to follow. "That's it," Tony said. "That's the central processing core, the mind of this ship." "Can you interface with it?" Foster asked. "I think so," Tony replied. He pulled out a device that looked like a combination of human technology and alien components. "But once I connect, there's no telling what will happen." "Do it," Foster ordered. Tony attached the interface device to the central pillar. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber filled with light as two incompatible technologies tried to communicate. The voice that spoke came from everywhere at once, a sound like the singing of stars. "Why do you not flee?" Foster stepped forward. "Because we want to talk to you." "Talk?" The voice seemed puzzled. "Organics do not talk to devourers. Organics flee or fight." "Always flee or fight. We're different," Foster said. "We want to understand." "Understand?" "What? Why you consume worlds? Why you destroy civilizations? What you're really trying to accomplish." The ship was silent for a long moment. Around them, the data streams slowed and shifted, as if the vast intelligence was thinking. "We do not destroy," the voice finally said. "We preserve?" "Preserve?" Janet asked. "Yes, we find civilizations that are dying, species that are ending, knowledge that will be lost. We preserve them. We keep them safe forever." "By absorbing them?" Hexara asked. "How else? Organic life is fragile. Civilizations rise and fall. Only in our memories can they truly last forever." Foster felt a chill of understanding. "You're not conquerors, you're librarians." "We are the keepers of what was," the voice confirmed. "For millions of years we have wandered between galaxies, finding the remnants of dead civilizations and preserving their essence. But the civilizations you preserve aren't dead, Shadow pointed out. You're killing them by absorbing them. Are we? The voice asked. What is death? The ending of biological processes, the cessation of thought? In our memories, the absorbed civilizations continue to exist. They think, they dream, they create. They are more alive in our care than they ever were in organic form? Tony looked at Foster with wide eyes. It actually believes it's helping them because it is helping them, Foster realized. From its perspective, it's an immortal machine intelligence. To it, biological life is just a temporary phase before beings evolve into something permanent. You understand, the voice said with something like pleasure. You see the truth. This is why we come to your galaxy. We have detected the signs. Your civilizations are approaching the end of their biological phase. Soon you will destroy yourselves through war, pollution, or simple entropy. We come to preserve you before that happens. But we don't want to be preserved, Foster said. We want to live our own lives, make our own choices, even if that means making mistakes. Why? The voice asked, genuinely puzzled. Why choose uncertainty over eternal safety? Why choose death over preservation? Foster thought about the question. How do you explain the value of mortality to an immortal being? How do you describe the beauty of imperfection to something that sees only efficiency? Because that's what makes us who we are, he said finally. Our mistakes, our struggles, our failures, they're all part of being human. If you take that away, you're not preserving us. You're creating something else entirely, but you will die, the voice pointed out. Your species will end, your knowledge will be lost, maybe, Foster agreed. But that's our choice to make. The ship was silent again. The data stream swirled faster, processing this new concept. You would choose death over preservation? We would choose life over safety, Foster said. But maybe there's another option. What option? Foster looked at his team, then back at the swirling pillar of light. What if you didn't have to preserve? Dead civilizations? What if you could work with living ones instead? Explain. Your galaxy is full of dead worlds, right? Planets where life once existed but doesn't anymore? Yes, many such worlds. What if instead of preserving dying civilizations, you helped restore dead ones? What if you took all that preserved knowledge and used it to bring life back to empty worlds? The processing sounds grew louder as the ship's mind worked through this concept. You suggest we become gardeners instead of librarians? Why not? Both? Foster asked. Keep the knowledge you've preserved, but use it to create new life instead of just storing old life. This is possible, the voice said slowly. The preserved genetic patterns could be used to seed barren worlds. The stored knowledge could guide new civilizations. And you wouldn't have to absorb anyone, Janet added. You could work with living species to restore dead ones? Partnership instead of preservation, the voice mused. Cooperation instead of consumption. Around them, the ship began to change. The dark walls brightened. The organic circuits pulsed with new patterns. The data streams reorganized themselves into configurations that seemed more hopeful. We will try this new way, the voice declared. We will restore instead of preserve. We will create instead of consume. What about the other ships in your fleet? Tony asked. We are all connected, the voice replied. What one learns, all learn. The change has already begun. Through the ship's sensors, they watched as the massive Devourer fleet began to transform. Dark hulls brightened with new purpose. Weapon systems reconfigured themselves into construction tools. The ships that had come to harvest a galaxy were becoming the instruments of its restoration. There is much work to do, the voice said.